Bess has a new boyfriend named Alan Thomas. Oddly enough, this isn't the first time they've started a new Nancy Drew series by giving Bess a boyfriend named Alan. They did the same thing with the Nancy Drew files. I don't know why it's a trend for Bess to date an Alan at the start of every new series, but I'm sure her original boyfriend Dave Evans is disappointed.
Argo Funk Book Review, Argo Funk Book Review.
Becca Wright invited Nancy and her friends on an Alaskan cruise ship to solve a sabotage mystery. Get used to seeing sabotage mysteries in this series. There are a lot of them. Alan doesn't know about the mystery. The girls constantly make excuses to distract him so they can talk about the mystery in private. Poor Alan is not smart enough to realize that his girlfriend's always trying to get rid of him. Nancy and George start by wading their way through a crowd of characters, including Max the butler, Scott the shore excursions guy, Hero the child supervisor, and a Canadian family with bratty 8-year-old Tobias. That makes 10 new characters in the first chapter. Slow down, book! You don't need to introduce everyone all at once. They talk to Becca, but they're interrupted by two newlyweds named Vince and Lacey. They just found a dead body in the pool! Things are tense for a moment, until it's revealed the corpse is just a mannequin. They meet a strange woman named Wendy the travel blogger, and a guy in a Hawaiian t-shirt who's always hanging around the employees-only area. Nancy is distracted by another scream. It's Iris the maid who is frightened by Tobias. Only 5 new characters in Chapter 2. Nancy talks with Becca, and they're interrupted by her assistant, Tatjana. This book is starting to feel like a series of interruptions. Nancy's suitcase goes missing for a while. When it's found, there's a threat inside. I have a hard time taking this threat seriously because it's written in chat speak. At dinner, our heroes are seated with 3 women called the ABCs. The ABCs recognize Lacey as someone who works on a Caribbean cruise ship. Clue alert, clue alert. Vince and Lacey talk about the body in the pool, and Nancy's attention wanders because, hey, dead bodies aren't very interesting to her. Nancy and her friends sneak away from Alan so she can bring them up to date on all of her progress. What progress exactly? On the way back, Nancy overhears 2 men get into an argument in the kitchen. The next day, Nancy follows some dead ends, like searching the pool area. There are no clues because it was cleaned yesterday. Likewise, she goes to the kitchen where the 2 men argued. The 2 men aren't there anymore, so she learns nothing. Did she honestly expect them to stay in the kitchen overnight? Alan gets the group to play miniature golf. A camera crew films Nancy golfing next to a stuffed moose. Bess and Alan lean against the moose. One of the antlers falls off and hits Nancy in the arm. Note to viewers, please use stuffed animals responsibly. Nancy visits the medic, and the captain arrives at lunch because he feels there aren't enough characters in this book already. He's interrupted when Tobias's pet tarantula is found in the dessert cart. Nancy throws together an explanation for why Tobias the 8-year-old is definitely the culprit. Nobody takes this explanation seriously. Wendy is added to the suspect list after she writes a series of clickbait blog posts about the accidents. The cruise ship arrives in Ketchikan. Alan signs the group up for activities, and Nancy complains the whole time because she'd rather be investigating. She sees Scott give something to a scary-looking man. Nancy follows Scott for a while and sees him give a huge wad of cash to another scary man. She confronts Scott. Scott explains, "Oh, they're just my poker buddies. We play for money." Scott didn't want anybody to know about this because he could get fired for being a bad poker player. I mean, he could get fired for illegal gambling with criminal types. We have the cover scene where Nancy is hit from behind. She falls backwards over the railing into the freezing ocean. I have no idea how the culprit managed to hit her from behind when her back was to the railing. Was the culprit floating in midair on a rope or something? The culprit destroys the chandelier in the dining room while everybody else is ashore. That narrows down the suspect list to 2 people, the honeymooners. Nancy realizes they're the culprits, along with Iris the maid. The three of them secretly work for a rival cruise ship, which is paying them to sabotage the competition. They are caught red-handed and arrested. It looks like the case is closed for a moment, but then someone robs a jewelry store. Uh-oh! You're gonna have to buy the next book to figure out who the real culprit is. The end. Post-book follow-up. This is a 2-book story. It's pretty obvious that it was originally intended to be one of the Girl Detective trilogies. Nancy directly mentions Girl Detective Book 40 on page 132. I am glad they condensed the story from 3 books to 2. I did not want to put up with another trilogy. I can't help but think it was a mistake to start the new series with a recycled trilogy, though. The trilogies were so bad they got the old series cancelled. Don't start the new series with one of them! It would have been so much better to start the new series with fresh material, something which is different, something which shows off what's new about the reboot. Instead, this feels so much like the former series, it makes you wonder why they even bothered pretending it's not. To its credit, the book has some solid characterization. The small interactions between Nancy and her friends are nice, and it's pretty easy to remember who the minor characters are, even if they only appear once or twice. The problem is that there are far too many characters, over 30. The book would be greatly improved if half the characters disappeared, allowing Nancy to talk to someone for more than 2 pages without being interrupted. Here is a partial list of characters who only appeared twice. Max the butler, the ABCs, Tatiana, Hero the child supervisor, Captain Peterson, Baraz and the 3 other cameramen, Scott the shore excursion guy, Wendy the travel blogger, and even Iris the maid, who's one of the culprits. I probably don't have to say this, but it always feels like a mystery book is cheating when the culprit is barely in the story. You can argue the culprits are in the story just as much as the other characters are, but it would have been nice to give them a little focus. Because this is a 2-part book, nothing gets resolved. These characters and their respective subplots won't be finished until book 2. If you read this as a standalone book, you're going to be disappointed. There's a lot of unresolved, pointless material. The thing that bothered me about this book is that it's double-spaced, when all the other Nancy Drew books are single-spaced. That feels like a trick to make the book longer, especially because I saw advertisements for this book bragging that it's 180 pages, the same length as the original Nancy Drew books. No, it's not. It's a book pretending to be longer than it actually is, with huge chapter headings and double spacing, which continues for the rest of the series. It would have been better if the cruise story was one single-spaced book. Instead, it's 2 double-spaced books. I give Nancy Drew Diaries #1, Curse of the Arctic Star, a 4 out of 10.